speaker today. So I really want to thank her for her time. So today we're presenting to you the Zakat series with Ms. Toyin Kekere-Ekun. She is the CEO of Lotus Capital Limited, and it's an investment management company that focuses on like private wealth and asset management, and it's fully halal. So she's a wonderful person to help us learn and engage about Zakat and its obligations. So thank you so much, Ma, for your time. We're very, very grateful. If you are able to start your presentation now, we would really appreciate it. So thank you everyone for joining. Over to you, Ma. Thank you very much, Ma.
Okay, thank you very much, Deji, for that. Well, I'm happy to be here today for another Zakat series held by Tahara Collective. And I pray that Allah guides us all throughout this presentation so that we all understand as much as we can. So I'll share my slides right now. Can I do that? Okay. By the way, Ramadan Mubarak to everybody. Day 18 already, so it goes by so fast. Okay. Okay, so let me know when you can see my slides.
I can see you and I can see your background. I haven't seen the slides yet.
Okay. How about now?
The screen to show the slides is up, but I haven't seen the slides yet. Okay, now I can see it's not in presentation mode, but I can see it PowerPoint.
Okay, it's not a presentation, I believe.
No, not yet. I can see the full.
Okay.
Are you trying to put it in presentation mode, Ma, or are we okay? Because it's still.
It's actually in presentation mode right now from my end, right?
Okay, then I think it's still. We should maybe let's see the next slide. I just want to make sure it's legible to a certain extent. But honestly, I think yeah, if you're happy with it, we're good to go.
No, I'm not actually.
Okay,
I want it to be presentation mode. So is it? I'm surprised that it's not. How about now?
Not yet, but let's because there's a slight delay with the presentation. Maybe it will take some time, but it's not on presentation mode yet.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so let me just start while we're waiting for you to come up. Right.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay then. So Zakat is the third pillar of Islam, right? But it's also the one that is the least talked about in the Ummah, and also the one that is least understood, right? By the time a lot of us are taught maybe from childhood about prayers, fasting, and even even though we're young, we see members of family go for Hajj and things like that. Zakat is something that is from my personal experience and many other people's personal experience was never discussed until right? And when people had even been in earning capacity for years before, it dawned on them that, wow, you have to pay, Zakat. So anybody who is here today, well done for being here. Many of you have probably heard of Zakat before. Many of you are already paying Zakat before. Those of you that are just learning about Zakat for the first time, well done. And I hope that we'll break the cycle of some about it and understanding it better. So, G, I'll ask you, what can you see right now?
Still I can still
Still
see the
not.
presentation, but it's not in
Okay.
presentation.
Okay then.
Maybe is it possible to put it in presentation mode before you share?
Yes, let me try that. I think I'll try that. So that will help.
But the slide looks clear enough at the moment now.
Yeah,
And then if it helps, maybe as well you could, if because at some point your network was breaking a little bit, so maybe if
okay.
you're sharing your slides, maybe you don't have to share you can turn off your camera just for bandwidth.
Well, yes, I'll do that now.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, it's actually not possible to share if it is in presentation mode.
I see. Okay. All right. I mean,
If-
it was pretty legible the way it was before, so I think we're okay. Yeah, I think this
okay.
is fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is the meaning of zakat? Zakat is actually obligatory charity. So that means that it's compulsory as a Muslim when you hit a certain stage in income that you should start paying zakat. And there are other several meanings. It also means to increase, to augment, to purify. Allah says that when you are grateful, I will increase you, right? And paying zakat is actually being grateful for whatever wealth that Allah has given you, and also zakat purifies wealth. So those are the several meanings of zakat: to increase, to augment, to purify. So let's look at a few parts in the Quran where zakat is actually mentioned. So you have Quran chapter 9, verse 103, which says, "O Prophet, of their properties, take charity so that you may purify and sanctify them therewith and pray for them. Verily, your prayer is a source of security for them." Right? And there's another part, Quran 3, verse 180, that says, "And let not those who covetously withhold that of which Allah has bestowed on them of his bounty," that's wealth, "think it as good for them, and so they do not pay the obligatory zakat. Nay, it will be worse for them. The things they covetously withheld shall be tied to their necks like a collar on the day of resurrection." So this just shows how important it is to pay our zakat, and it's just as well that we're all here today to try and learn more from it. So what are the benefits of zakat? Right? There's so many benefits, but let's start with the benefit to the giver. So the giver of zakat. So the first thing is that zakat actually inspires. It encourages generosity, it encourages empathy, and it encourages goodwill. It discourages hoarding and miserliness, because you know that if you're going to pay a certain sum out of your wealth, then you have to make it grow. You have to make it grow. So it makes you avoid hoarding and all that. And then and what I mean here is it encourages investments and growth. What else does it do? It purifies. So zakat cleanses the soul and protects it from greed, because your hand is constantly outstretched, right? And then it means that, so you have a giving soul, right? Not a miserly soul. And then zakat brings blessings to your wealth. I have a friend, and I think I always quote her every time I make this presentation, and she says, "Charity does not decrease wealth. It doesn't." And that is the truth. The more you give, the more you will receive. So, I mean, what else do we have? So, benefits of zakat to the society. So, zakat facilitates the redistribution of wealth. It bridges the gap between the rich and the poor, right? So, I mean, you make some money, you give it to the poor can use it, and you have less ills in society, because we all know what happens when you have a society that is economically challenged, and even people that may never ever have thought of doing illegal things start to think about it. Women that have never ever thought of doing anything bad start to think about it. Excuse me. And so you have a generally horrible society because of this wide gap. So Allah recognizes that and is like, you know what? Give your wealth before they take it from you by force. So that's one of the advantages. Then, so who can actually receive zakat? Quran chapter 9, verse 60 actually talks about this. And there's several categories of people that are actually qualified to receive zakat. I'm using the word qualify here because Allah is very regimental when it comes to a number of things, and zakat is one of the things that he's regimented on. So not only is he obligatory, right, and then the people that can actually receive it have been clearly defined. So you have the needy and the poor. The word masakin is used interchangeably in the Quran. It could mean poor. Basically, I believe we all understand what this means. There are some poor people who do not look poor and actually poor, and they need, and it's only maybe when you ask them that you realize that this person needs something, let me help. So you have people like that, and you have people that are obviously poor, so they qualify. And then you have those employed to collect the funds. So people that are administering zakat, collecting zakat, the collectors, you can pay them from this. And then to attract the hearts of those who have been inclined. So you might see somebody who, has been researching on Islam and all that with difficulty. You can, give some zakat to, soften the person's heart even further towards the religion. So that is allowed. And then those in debt under hardship, zakat can be used to settle their debt. And then it can be used to free the captives in the times of slavery. And then for Allah's cause, so those that are going, on holy war, you can use zakat to pay for their expedition. And then the wayfarer, that's the stranded traveler, they also qualify for zakat. And I once went for a lecture when I realized that a wayfarer can actually be a wealthy person. You can actually have someone who was stranded in the airport in a strange country and doesn't know anyone and doesn't have access to his funds and might be very wealthy. But because maybe his bag was stolen, passport was stolen, everything is gone, and he's stranded and cannot take the next flight out, he actually qualifies for zakat in that circumstance. So I found that very interesting when I found out last year. So let's talk about differences between zakat and sadaqah, because some people confuse sadaqah with zakat. So it's very important that we understand the differences. As we said earlier, zakat is obligatory charity. So you pay zakat. You're obliged to pay zakat. Whereas sadaqah is voluntary. So you give sadaqah, which means, well, I can give you from the goodness of my heart. So you give sadaqah, but you pay zakat. One is voluntary, one is obligatory. Now, for zakat, you have a fixed minimum sum, defined computation, and specific timing. Like I said, it's very, very well regimented, right? And for sadaqah, you can give as you wish. You can give small, you can give large, you can give any month you please, you can give anyone you like sadaqah. So that's not regimented. And one thing I've noticed though is that sadaqah is usually actually more than zakat, because zakat is obligatory, so there's a minimum that you're required to do. And you realize that sometimes you might say, oh, my zakat is not so much, let me add extra to it, and alhamdulillah, Allah reward you for it. Now, so you have beneficiaries, and utilization are clearly defined. I described 8 categories of people that qualify for zakat. But for sadaqah, you can give anybody you please. So, I think that is quite clear. Next thing we have is, okay, yes. So before I proceed with zakat, there's a question that I have. Is your income halal? Is your income halal? And the reason I'm asking this is because you cannot pay zakat on income that is impermissible. No matter what, you really can't. It's not accepted. So how are you going to, how are you going to fulfill your obligation if you can't even pay zakat on your income? So let's look at what is income. We try and that's interest income is impermissible income. So what is interest income really? Income from tangible savings accounts, treasury bills, and bonds, conventional. And then income from maybe shares in breweries, conventional banking stocks, and all of that. Then income from gambling, lotteries, and other ills. Then of course, the most obvious ones, income from unethical practices, illegal practices. You can't say, oh, I stole money, but don't worry, let me just pay Zakat to purify it. No, you really can't do that. Yeah, not the that doesn't even qualify at all. But never worry, there are halal options. You have the halal industry in Nigeria has been growing over the last decade, and so there are availabilities for us to choose from. They might not be as much as the conventional financial space, but it's growing, and it's important that you continue to stick with these types of investments, or so that you can qualify to pay your zakat as regimented by Allah. So you have non-interest banks where you can get your savings and time deposits. You have non-interest fund managers where you can get halal funds and sukuk. You have takaful companies. Takaful companies are non-interest insurance companies, so you can get your halal insurance from them. You have non-interest pension. So, I mean, Pencom created the Fund 6 about 2 years ago, and it became operational last year. So you have the Fund 6. So that's available. If you already have your pension, you can request to convert it to Fund 6, to transfer it to Fund 6, so that your returns can be halal. So I mean, many people have been working for years and years and didn't have the opportunity to have their pensions in halal fund. That is fine. It's not your fault. It's not our fault, rather. But now that there is a Fund 6, necessity is no longer accepted. Fund 6 was created. So let's all try to move our pensions to Fund 6. And then, of course, you have real estate. Real estate is quite obvious. You can buy real estate as you please, but just make sure that it's used for halal purposes. All right. So let's go back to Zakat. Zakat are a series of wealth where you pay Zakat on. For this wealth, focus on assets. However, you should know that Zakat is due on the following categories: agricultural products, right? So things like grains, fruits produced by the earth, you pay Zakat on it. Livestock, grazing animals which feed freely from the earth, such as cows, sheep, goats, and camels, you pay Zakat on it. So if you're in the farming industry, you need to seek, knowledge on how you can pay Zakat on your produce. Then, of course, gold and silver stored for wealth, you have to pay Zakat on it. And then business merchandise, that's your stock, you have to pay Zakat on it. And then financial assets, like I mentioned earlier, your cash, savings, investments, rental income, profits, shares, securities, and bonds. The halal ones, of course, you do need to pay Zakat on it. So Zakat eligibility, because I'm sure everyone is wondering, okay, what can I do now? So there's several considerations before eligible to pay Zakat. The first thing is you have to completely own the item that you want to pay Zakat on. You have to completely own it. That's one. The second thing is the nisab. The nisab is the minimum amount of wealth that a Muslim must own before becoming obliged to pay Zakat. So there's a minimum wealth. The next thing is it must be growing. It must be growing, and there must be abundance above need. Zakat is not meant to put anyone in penury. Zakat is not meant to become an inconvenience to anyone. It's if you can afford to pay, that you pay it. So it must be clearly obvious that you are above. You can't pay Zakat and still be saying, "Oh, let me look for money to pay school fees. Let me go and look for money to rent." It means you're not qualified to pay Zakat. And then solvency. So you're free from debt. You're free from debt. And debt here is not long-term debt that you're free to pay instrumentally. I mean, that's fine. Long-term, we're talking about debt that is crushing you, that is overwhelming, that can make you insolvent, make you completely devastated. So that's the kind of debt that is being referred to. And then, of course, the final thing is that Zakat is due on wealth after 1 lunar year. So, for example, you get money today, Zakat is not due on it. But if you're still in possession of that fund in a year's time, whatever the balance is after removing expenses, you do have to pay zakat on it if it meets hisab. Right, and of course, I'll say here, even though I said also about agriculture or anything like that, I'll say here, zakat is due on crops harvest time, not years time. Calculations of zakat very quickly. So, like I said, nisab is the minimum threshold, that qualifies for zakat. It's the second round of gold, or some say 85, or 612 grams of silver, right? Now, the National Moon Sighting Committee of Nigeria regularly publishes the nisab, which is what we use because you're required to follow the law in your own country. So the current nisab is 2,528,480 naira. This means that if all your savings at the end of the year are up to 2,528,480 naira, it means that you have to pay zakat. All right. If it is below this, then you don't qualify. The interesting thing is that this thing has been rising. When I gave this presentation last year, it was 2.2 million. The year before that, it was about 1.5. And it's rising because of the exchange rate. The beauty of this is that it's quite obvious that you may have qualified for zakat in 2 years ago at 1.5 million, but now the zakat is about 2.5. It means that your condition is deteriorated. And gold being used as a matrix, I think it's actually quite fantastic that it shows that your economic situation has probably deteriorated over the last 2 years, and therefore nisab is now 2.5 on its own. On its own, it was, the value of gold doesn't change, and because that's the metric we use, it's clear that it tracks, how the economic situation really is. So, well, if alhamdulillah, your wealth is up to 2.5, then you qualify to pay zakat. Now, the calculation of zakat varies. There are several classes. There's a 20%, 10, 5, and all that. This qualifies for things like agricultural products and things like that. The 20% is actually on if you find a lost treasure somewhere, maybe in your backyard, you find a 100-year-old treasure under the under the ground, then zakat is 20%. That's the only thing that qualifies for 10%, 5%, and 2.5%. The one we are used to is the 2.5% of financial assets, right? Which is what we're going to concentrate on today. But things like the livestock, the crops, they are the ones that are the 10 or 5% depending. All right, so let's move on to how do you calculate zakat. So let's just take an example of financial assets we spoke about. And of course, gold and silver, those are very important. So you have the value of your gold and silver. You add that to the value of your cash at hand in the bank, and then of course your stock and your shares, the value of that, and then the money you have loaned. Now, the money you have loaned, I'm going to talk about that soon. So I won't really go to that here because we'll talk about that. So the money you have loaned, all that, you add it to it. And then you subtract the money you borrow that is due. And then due expenses. The money that you borrow that is due is a debt. So for example, you are paying your zakat in December, right? But you have a maybe mortgage payment, you can subtract that mortgage payment. But you cannot subtract the whole mortgage for the next 10 years. No, you can't do that. You can just subtract the mortgage maybe for that particular month, right? And of course, your due expenses, your normal living expenses, you can subtract that. Whatever the figure is, you compute 2.5% on it, and you're good to go. We actually have a zakat calculator on our website, so anybody who requires that can actually go there. And they also frequently ask questions. But we'll treat a few today, right? So one of the frequent, the things here what people usually have a lot of questions on. I think the first one has already been done, which is interest. Can you pay zakat on interest? The answer is no. From what we said, you can't pay on riba because it's impermissible. So that one is clear. On salaries, is zakat due on salaries? Yes, zakat is due on salaries, but after 1 year. So what I would advise is this: you need to pick a month, right, where you pay zakat to make it easy for you, because currency month. What you can do is that, so for example, you started a job in January, so you got your first salary in January. Now, zakat is not due on that salary till December. So it's most likely going to be from which is where savings and investments come in. So you spend out of your salary and you save some. So whatever you have saved from that salary in January is not due for zakat till December. February is not due for zakat till the following February. But what you can do, which is what most people do, is that since your very first salary that was given to you in January, zakat is due in December, you can pick December as your zakat month. You pick your zakat month, and then every other salary that you have earned, between that January and December, you pay zakat on it in December. You will notice that it means that you're paying zakat early for some of them. It doesn't matter. If the earlier, the better. But also make sure that structured. What happens is that, so you save till December, and then you calculate and pay zakat on whatever it is. If it reaches Nisab, you pay zakat on it, right? So I think that's pretty clear. So it makes it very easy and tidy for you. Now, for debt, I saw things. If a debt is imminent, so for example, you have a mortgage payment due, or it's something that it doesn't have a mortgage fee, something that is due, you can actually subtract it, right, before paying zakat. However, if it's not imminent in that December, then you let it go. But I wanted to say this: I've been saying December, but recently I realized that using December is not a good idea, because the 1 year we're talking about is actually 1 lunar year, which means that December, if I use December maybe 5 years ago, then let me say 6 years ago, but I think there's every 3 years that the month changes. So if I use December 6 years ago, chances are that by 6 years time, my zakat payment should actually be October. But if I'm saying December, I won't even realize it, because I'll just say December, which is one mistake I've been making. And I just recently realized that, so really it's best to use an Islamic month. And you know that month will always be the same, because it's a lunar month. So, which is why a lot of people pick Ramadan. Apart from the blessings of Ramadan, it's just easy. Ramadan, okay, let me just pay my zakat. But the issue with using Ramadan is that you may end up paying your zakat late. So take me, for example, where I've been mistakenly using December, forgetting that it's a lunar calendar. I think it's moving up. So by now, who knows, maybe it's even June, I'm supposed to be paying my zakat, right? But assuming I say, I want to start paying zakat in Ramadan, it means that I will be delaying till April paying zakat. Zakat might have been due in October, right? So, which is why, even though everybody wants to pay, Ramadan, zakat in Ramadan, it might be tricky. So, it's something we need to really think about properly. So, what I recommend is that, not everybody is very familiar with the months of the year. The ones is Shawwal, Shaban, it's before and after Ramadan. But there are so many other months. So I would recommend that you find out the one that is closest to where you are meant to pay zakat. Memorize it and just stick to it. So okay, when this particular month comes up, then I'm meant to pay my zakat. And you can also find a way to harmonize it with Ramadan. I guess that might be done as well. If you find a way to harmonize it, or you can pay it twice. Pay some then and some then. That's really up to you. So so on loans, so now there are different things on loans. So one is that you lend somebody money, and the person is going to pay you back. That means that when you are calculating your zakat, you have to add that to your wealth. You can't say because the money is somewhere, it's not yours. You're going to get it back. So if the money has been out for a year, you have to calculate it. You have to add it to your wealth and calculate it. However, if you lend somebody money and the chances of you getting back is very, 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 in fact, almost non-existent, then you're allowed to ignore it, because I mean you can't be paying zakat on something that is not going to come back into your possession. So you can discount that. So those are the things regarding loans. So pension. Last year, I actually removed pension from my presentation because I wanted to stay away from it, because there are just so many conflicting views, just so many conflicting views. However, I've put it back this year because I was able to get a ruling from a very renowned scholar, which I mean a globally renowned scholar. I was able to get a view from him. And so because of that, I was confident enough to put it back. Okay, at least I won't go and tell people rubbish, So for pension, so there are two types. There's pension where you're paid your salary, then is deducted and is taken to your pension fund. And then there is pension that you don't even smell it, you don't see it at all. It's paid directly, which is what many of us experience in Nigeria. We have pension where we get net of our salaries. So, and then the issue has always been, are we going to pay zakat on pension? I mean, I don't get, where am I going to get the money from? It's coming to my possession. I didn't even smell it. Where am I going to get the cash from? So what we advised was that for pension, so for pension that comes through your salary, that you see it and then it goes, you're supposed to pay pension, you're supposed to pay zakat on it. However, for pension where you don't see it at all, you are supposed to pay zakat on it. And I was quite surprised, by that. You are supposed to pay zakat on it. However, you can pay zakat on it when you actually receive it. So it could be upon retirement. When you receive it, then you pay zakat on it. However, I will advise that you pay what you can. So pay what you can. What he said was pay what you can. Whatever you can't pay is fine, since it's not cash coming to you. It's out there. And when you actually receive the cash, you pay the rest. So I think at least for pension, you pay what you can within your own might, and the rest, Allah will understand that, okay, you paid what you could. The pension is out there. When you now receive it, I don't know, your old age, for your retirement, then pay the balance. I'll advise that you pay it, yearly, as much as you just pay some of it yearly, so that it doesn't become a big burden, when you actually retire. Okay, so for homes and cars and riding animals and furniture, they're exempt from zakat. Your assets and also your chair in the house, your cars, they're not eligible for zakat. And then inherited cash and funds. Inherited cash and funds that comes to your possession is eligible for zakat after 1 year. Like I start saying, 1 lunar year. After 1 lunar year, it's eligible for zakat. All right. But if it doesn't come into your possession, it's not. So you inherited something, but they never give it to you. Just know you inherited something. It's not eligible for zakat. So now we're going into distribution of zakat, because like I said, zakat is very, very regimented, right? And it's important that we understand, so we've talked about, who can receive zakat, right? So we're going to go a bit deeper now. So you can actually give zakat to your relatives. In fact, it's encouraged, because those are the people that are closest to you. However, you can't give your wife, you can't give your children, you can't give your parents, and you can't give your grandparents. And this is because you're meant to take care of them anyway. So you can't say, I'll give my wife my zakat. No, you can't do that. Okay, so, but you can give your cousins, you can give your uncles, you can give your aunties, you can do that. For mosques and Islamic centers, it's not meant for buildings and things like that. It's meant for individuals. But guess what? You can give them your sadaqah. Remember, we talked about sadaqah. You can give sadaqah as you please, as much as you like. But for zakat, zakat is meant for individuals. All right. Then hospitals and schools, construction, no. Zakat is meant for individuals. But like I said, please feel free with your sadaqah. The needy and the poor non-Muslims. Zakat is meant to develop the ummah, and so is meant for Muslims. However, you can give your sadaqah to anyone. The Red Cross, why not? You know, you can give your sadaqah to anyone you like. But zakat is not meant for that. Paying abroad. For paying abroad, what I'll say is this. Since if you have poor people close to you, around you, on your way to work every day, you see them, why are you sending your sadaqah abroad? Your zakat abroad. It's better you pay it here, and then your sadaqah, you can send it abroad. Like I said, sadaqah is not limited. And remember, we said zakat is to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, is to reduce societal ills, to try and make the communities better, to reduce, the illegal activities as a result of economic hardship. So it's better to actually try and help your own society first. Then delaying till Ramadan. I think I already touched on this. We all know that, all any good act that happens in Ramadan is multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. So Ramadan is a time where zakat is paid the most. But then people are poor all year round. They're poor all year round. So you have poor people all year round, rather. So you don't necessarily have to delay your zakat till Ramadan. Okay, so I think that ends zakat. So we'll go very, very quickly to zakat al-fitri. Zakat al-fitri is the zakat that you pay at the end of Ramadan. The zakat you pay at the end of Ramadan. And why do you do that? It's because you want the poor to also enjoy. You want them to also enjoy Eid along with, everybody has fasted for 29 or 30 days. Everybody's, like, oh yeah, we did it. You want them to also feast. You want them to also enjoy with you. Everybody's happy. So that's why you're meant to pay zakat al-fitri. That purifies our fasts. It actually purifies our fast. How is it? The family is meant to, count every member of the family, how many are we, and pay zakat al-fitri for everybody and the dependents in the household, right? We'll get to that shortly. It's usually paid 2 to 3 days before the end of Ramadan. The latest time you can pay your zakat al-fitri is before the Eid prayers. Anything after the Eid prayer, you missed it, right? So please, let's try to pay our sadaqah, our zakat al-fitri 3 days, 2 days, before Ramadan completes, before Shawwal, so that it can, it can be used for the purpose of which it was intended. Now, calculation of zakat al-fitri. It's 2.25 grains, 2.25 kilograms per person. So grains are usually encouraged. Things like rice, millet, the local food in that community is what is encouraged to give them, which can be stored and weighed. However, there are people that live abroad that do not have access. You can just take rice and give it to the mosque to help you distribute. You don't have that in some societies, in some communities. So you can actually give money to an organization that can help you, buy the grains and distribute it. However, avoid it as much as possible. Try and avoid it as much as you can. If you're in a society where it's easy to distribute this item, that's the preferred way to give zakat al-fitr. So I've come to the end of the presentation. Right. Thank you everybody for listening. And if there are any questions, then I guess we'll take them. The ones I can answer, I will. And may Allah guide us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ma. This was very insightful and really helpful and very timely, of course. We have before we have some questions in the chat, and some people have raised their hands, but before we do the Q&A, we have some announcements to make. So if you don't mind just giving us a minute or two, everyone, just let's make the announcements, and then we would have some engaging discussions, inshallah. Thank you. So Latifa, please.
Thank you, Deji. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh for joining today's session. Thank you so much, Ma, for this session. I think that I learned a lot from today's session, and I'm sure that we all also found this beneficial. The announcements that I have is with regards to programs and events from the Tahara Collective. So all through this Ramadan, we have brought to us all interesting and engaging programs. We had sessions on gratitude, on patience, on forgiveness, and also on the goals of Ramadan. And today we had the Zakat series. Next week, Saturday, inshallah, we'll also have an online session with one of our imams, and the topic will be dealing with doubts. Next week, Sunday, inshallah, we'll also be having a physical tafsir and iftar after. And then it's a physical one. We would inshallah communicate the dates when we share the flyers, and then there will also be a Google form for registration. The topic of the day will be parents as pathways to paradise. We'll inshallah share all the details on our social media pages. Also, please follow us on all our social media pages, on Instagram, on Twitter. We also have a YouTube page. Please subscribe, like, and share all our content. You can also catch up on our past sessions via our YouTube page. I've also dropped the link to subscribe to the YouTube page, and also the link to subscribe for our mailing. I will drop it once again for those that join after. We also post Ramadan content and reminders via our Instagram page and also on Twitter. We are also, because our speaker has emphasized on how important giving charity is, we have this Fidia project. This is a feeding project in collaboration with another Islamic organization. We plan to feed 100 Muslims from the beginning of Ramadan up until the end for the 30 days, 100 Muslims every day. We're supposed to provide sahur and for 100 Muslims every day. I would inshallah drop the account details in the chat box. Then to our Zakat, the Tahara Collective is eligible to receive Zakats, and we have been doing projects since 2020 up until now. In the last 4 years, we've impacted over 3,000 direct and indirect beneficiaries through our various projects, excuse me. During the COVID-19, we raised 11 million naira and more, which we disbursed for the COVID-19 relief project. We've given scholarships to over 10 students, and we are currently running a health insurance initiative that over 500 plus patients have benefited from. We also give money to patients that need life-saving surgeries. So we plan to do more this year. We want to increase our reach within the Ummah by raising 70 million naira to continue to provide the healthcare intervention across our communities, to provide education and mentorship support, and to also provide livelihood and business support. So we'd like that you consider paying your zakat into the Tahara Collective. I will drop the link to our website if you want to donate using the website option, or I'll also drop the account details to pay your zakat. It's a different account from the Fidia project for the zakat. Also, we also have our impact report video for the past 4 years on our Instagram page, so you can catch that to see all the things that we've done in the past 4 years. Thank you so much for joining today's session, and we can start to take questions. Thank you, Deji.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Latifa. So we have a few people who've raised their hands up, and we have a few questions in the chat. So maybe if you've raised your hand, I'll take it that you're happy to unmute yourself and ask the question directly. Also, if you can stop sharing the screen and turn on your camera. Thank you. So maybe I'll start. The first question in the chat was, there are many Islamic, from Mr. Olusegun Erugbogo, there are many Islamic appeals, for example, to build water wells and orphanages abroad. Will this be okay even though they're not local to where I reside, and he lived in the UK for added context. So, there are a lot of all these, appeal programs. So are these okay for Zakat?
You can pay your sadaka. You can pay sadaka. You can pay sadaka. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And even just to
you can actually pay your zakat if you like, to be honest, because I've met a scholar who actually said, yeah, you can if you can. But the thing is, like I said earlier, remember the objective of zakat in the first place, right? If you have people around you that you see every day that are in need of it, then why send it abroad? You understand? So that's really so. And another thing I noticed is that zakat is actually the minimum you can pay. You can pay more with sadaka. So please feel free to send abroad as you like, your sadaka.
Okay, thank you. But with this concept of abroad, so let's say, so let's say somebody doesn't live in Nigeria at the moment. Let's say you're living in America, you're living in the UK, and I think, but you still have strong ties to community in Nigeria. But from my understanding, you're encouraged to pay zakat in the communities, closest to you. But some people identify stronger needs with, there are a lot of Nigerians in diaspora, for instance, now. So some of them still identify stronger needs to maybe send that money back home to communities or to organizations versus where they're actually living at this point in time. So I don't know if you had any thoughts or if there's any ruling or if it's hard, do it where you are, that type of thing. Because again,
Well, I mean, if you're living in London, then your community is now London. Do you understand? That's your community because that's where you can be held up at gunpoint, not in Nigeria. Do you understand? So, but you can actually split it. It doesn't have to be. You can do 50-50. So.
Okay, thank you. Another question: can we pay Zakat al-Fitr earlier, like today? So somebody wants to know if you can pay Zakat al-Fitr as soon as anytime you want before Eid.
The thing is that if you pay the Zakat al-Fitr, would the person use it to break his fast rather than use it for Eid? Do you understand? Except maybe it's to an organization, and so they know, okay, don't worry, this is Zakat al-Fitr, we'll put it aside when it's time for. Chances that if you pay Zakat al-Fitr today, it might be used for fast breaking.
Okay, thank you very much. There's somebody whose hands are raised, Dami Lola. Are you okay to ask the question directly? If you can unmute yourself. Okay, if not Damilola, if you can unmute, there's a Folake who raised her hands up as well. Are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, kindly help unmute. Latifa, you might have to help me unmute.
Everyone can unmute their mics. There's no problem. Can please just try again? Is it working now? Assalamualaikum.
Oh, not everyone can unmute.
I can see.
Give me a second.
Oh,
it's working now. Yes, it's working now.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Ms. Toyin. It was an insightful session. It's really needed. A lot of us want to understand how to pay our zakat. So I have two questions. So the first one, in your presentation, you mentioned that one can pay zakat salary, but it still gets confusing. So I'm going to give you an example of a practical scenario, and I will appreciate if you can help me tell me what to do and not to do. So for instance, someone that is earning 1 million and as salary, monthly salary, and they got the job in Ramadan, year 1, and they have an expense of 800,000, and the person saved 200,000 every month. By Ramadan year 2, the savings will be 2.4 million, right? and let's say the nisab in year 2 is 2.4 million, do you pay your zakat on the 2.4 million, or you keep that 2.4 million for another year, another lunar year, before you pay the zakat? That's question 1. I don't know if I should go ahead with question 2, or you will answer that first.
Let me answer that first.
Okay, thank you.
What you do is you check with the nisab. If your savings is not up to the nisab, then you're not obliged to pay zakat. You can pay sadaqah from it if you want, but you're not obliged, as long as it's not up to that nisab. So it's up to you to be like, the sub is 2.5, but mine is 2.4. Yeah, should I? You can, do you understand? So it's no longer an obligation. So it's not up to you to decide whether or not, let me go ahead and pay sadaqah or pay zakat. And, there's nothing stopping you if you want, really. There's really nothing stopping you in that scenario.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to keep.
The issue will be if it's up to nisab and you don't pay. Do you understand? That is the issue. You don't have to, and then you see, the thing is that, I've been asked a number of questions about, intentions. So maybe some people knowing that, maybe if I buy this, I can deduct it, and I quickly go and buy it, so they don't deduct it, right? So you're doing zakat evasion. This is not even tax evasion anymore, So, but in the situation you're saying, it's even the opposite, wanting to actually pay, even though you're not obliged to pay. So you can give zakat. You can even pay it if you want, but you're not obliged. So I think that is not contentious.
Thank you very much. So I'm not obliged to, but I can pay. I can wait till the next year, though.
The next year, you may not have it. You may not have it the next year. You may have spent it. You don't know what's going to happen, by the next year. So so you can't say you wait till the next year. The next year might be 1 million. Remember the example I gave that when I did this presentation last year, nisab was 2.2. Today is 2.5. So it's just going higher and higher and higher. Do you understand? So and that shows the economic how do I say the hardship people are actually experiencing. If the nisab is getting higher, it means that some people are being excluded from paying nisab, which is a reflection of their own reduction in economic situation. So don't rely on next year. If you want to pay something, pay something. You don't know what's going to happen to that money.
And that's quite clear. Thank you very much. So the second question is, so when you have a landed property that is not being cultivated, do you pay zakat on it?
No, you only pay zakat on property you are about to sell. You want to, as a property bought for sale. Do you understand? However, if you're getting rent on that property, then you pay zakat on the rent after a year. Do you understand? Yes.
Understand. Thank you very much.
No.
Thank you, Damilola. Folake, are you able to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much, AJ. Assalamu alaikum, Zakat. So thank you very much for the presentation. So my question is that in terms of distribution, I guess, I have a nonprofit, and I'm establishing a subsidized kind of subsidized low-cost clinic in Lagos Island. And I've been, of course, thinking about ways to subsidize. And we also have indigent elderly people who were already given meds, cannot afford stuff. So obviously they can't afford more services if they can't afford their meds right now. And I'm thinking, is there a way to, is sponsoring their health, if we're able to say, oh, Alaja X or Mr. Y, the estimated cost of his healthcare for the year is 50,000. Is it eligible to say, if you have zakat, if you want to donate your zakat, you can adopt this person's healthcare bill for the year and pay that and use zakat to pay that? So can we collect zakat to pay, and I know someone said they have to be Muslim, so we can figure out a way to make sure the money goes to Muslims, but is it even eligible at all? That's my first question. Second question is, if I wanted to follow up with you about something personally or specifically, is there a way to reach you or something? If you don't mind, please. Thank you. Jazakallah khairan.
Okay. All right. So the first question, oh, definitely. Remember, we emphasized in the presentation that zakat is meant for individuals. So if your question, yes, so if your question had been, I think there's some interference. If your question had been, can I build a hospital? Or can I use it for some beds in the hospital? Can I use it for medication? Then that's a different thing. But since it's to pay the medical bills of individuals, then yes, it's allowed. Do you understand? So that's fine. So if you want to reach out to me, yeah, sure. I think Latifa is the one that is in charge of Tahara Collectives. You can get my number from her. So
Thank you very much, ma'am.
okay.
Let me quickly go back into the Q&A before I go back to the next person whose hands are raised. There is another question. In a situation where a Muslim is out of work and there is no growth on your income, are you eligible for zakat?
No, I think it's quite clear. No, and remember what we said. The criteria. There should be growth, and there should be what's it called? There should be abundance. So it should be. It means that. Remember that for even that saving you have at the end of the year, you've already removed all your expenses and everything. And so it's the balance you're paying zakat on, right? So, I mean, if you're out of a job, right, you're not earning much, right? Then, and zakat is not there to inconvenience you. Do you understand? I assure you that there are people that should be paying zakat. So if you can't, it's fine until you're eligible. So you keep checking, and inshallah, you will get there, because it also means that by the time you're eligible to pay zakat, you're like this, yes, because it means that you built your wealth to a stage that you can now pay zakat. So inshallah, you'll get there. So
There's also a question about access to the slides. I think if you're okay with that, we can arrange that tomorrow.
not necessarily. We'll see.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question. If I have investment properties like apartments I rent out, do I calculate and pay zakat on the investment value on the rental income? I think you've answered that, but I think you
Yes, rental income. Yes.
Thank you. So there is there's a question here from an Amina Ibrahim, but I think her hand is also raised. So I would give you the opportunity, Amina Ibrahim, to unmute yourself and maybe ask the same question or a different question. It's up to you. Amina, are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, yes, I can.
Okay, yes.
Okay, I want to ask the same question on zakat, because I tried using your zakat calculator. I want to find out if, for instance, I'm living in a rented apartment and I'm trying to own a home with an estate developer. Say I've paid in like 40 million, the house is going to cost maybe 70 million. I've paid 40 million to the estate developer for this house. It's the house I intend to live in. It's not like I'm going to rent it for something. So is that amount of money I've put into that house, is it eligible for zakat?
It's still cash, right?
Yeah,
No.
but it's for the house I want to live in.
Yeah, but it's not yet a house.
It's not, they are building it. The estate developers are building it.
So she has paid money to the estate developer.
Okay, so I have a question. If anything happens, will you get your money back?
Like, the intention is to build the house completely. There's no option of getting your money back, except maybe you sell the house along. If you want the money back, you may sell it and maybe, I don't know, get your money back.
That's quite a complicated one. I'll have to think about that. I won't want to answer that, even though I have some thoughts about it, right? Because the house is not yet in existence, and it's if, for example, developer stops building the house for any reason, will he refund you? You know, the balance you have paid. If he can refund you, then you have to pay. I mean, that it's still it's like an investment, right? And if it's an investment, then you should pay zakat on it. Do you understand?
Okay.
So I think what you need to assess is if the amount is still callable. If it's callable, you need to pay zakat on it until it becomes a house. Do you understand? Until it becomes a house.
Okay. Then secondly, say you have properties like all these trucks, tankers that work for you. Do you pay zakat on the amount of money the tanker is worth, or you pay on the income that those tankers bring in?
Okay, so if you were in the tanker selling business, you were selling tankers, right? Then it means
No,
that
not selling.
I'm just. So if you're in this tanker selling business, it means that the tankers are your stock and your inventory. Then that is what zakat is due on, the stock. However, if it's from the income from the trucks, then it's the income that zakat is due on. So that's what I was trying to make.
Okay. Then I also want to find out, say if one of the tankers, you decide to put it up for sale today, now, like today, you want to put one of them up for sale, is it also eligible for zakat? The amount of that, since you're going to get an income for it, so to speak, is it also eligible for zakat if you want to sell it today?
What will be eligible is the income. The income. So the income, so you sell the truck, you keep the income, is with you for a year, you pay zakat on it. Do you understand?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like if you want to sell it, whatever the value is at that day, you decide to sell it.
It's not the value, it's on what you receive. What you receive, yes.
Then if you have some landed properties, maybe you want to like build something on it, maybe a property on it. That land, for instance, that is there, you have not built the property. Is that land also part of your assets that you are going to calculate zakat on it?
No. Now, if you bought the land to sell, that's a different thing. But as long as you didn't buy it for, you're not in a land selling business, is fine. However, if you rent the land out, maybe for a party, things like that, whatever you receive on it is zakatable. If it's up to nisab, don't forget nisab as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, there are still a few more questions. Just give me a second. Let me find. Where we okay. Another person asking for the slides. I think based on popular demand, you may have to give up these slides now. Okay, so there's someone with two questions. If one's parents run a charity focused on funding the education of less privileged kids, can one donate his or her zakat to the charity since it's not directly for the parents? That's the first question, and then the second. Maybe if you can take that now, and then I'll go to question number 2.
I'm trying to understand what that has got to do with the parents.
So the parents of the charity, can they give zakat to the charity if this?
Yeah. So I mean,
parents' charity.
Okay. So when they say you can't give zakat to your parents, it means maybe to feed them, to clothe them. Do you understand? Right. However, if there is a mission, right, that is eligible for zakat, then of course you can give your zakat. So giving your parents zakat is they are needy. Do you understand? And they need, and so you give it to them. So I'm giving my father or my mother, that is what's not allowed. Do you understand? But if there's like I said, there's a mission, that qualifies, and of course you can.
Okay. And the second half of that question is, say one that is eligible to pay zakat hasn't paid his or zakat in a couple of years. Is it okay to start pay all the zakat in arrears, or do you just start from the current year?
You have to pay zakat in arrears. You have to. The thing though is that you can pay it in bits to make up for it. So you have to pay zakat in arrears because you actually owe it. It's which is why I was harping on the fact that zakat is the least discussed. They teach you how to pray, how to fast, but nothing about zakat until a lot of people are much older. So I think that really needs to stop. We need to start talking about zakat early on, and yes, so you have to pay. Is a debt on you now because it's an obligation. So yes, you have to do. But you can pay, as you are able.
Can we donate zakat to orphanages or schools for the less privileged? I think we have the answer already, but again, you can cover it if you please.
Yes, you can. Zakat is for individuals, so yes, definitely.
If I invest 1 million in a startup with no dividends, am I required to pay zakat for the money invested?
If the 1 million is up to Nisab, then yes. If after a year, so even if you invest 1 million, no, did you say in a startup? As
in a startup, yes,
business?
yes, a startup
okay,
without dividends, yes.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So they founded a company essentially.
So what you do is you value the 1 million. So you value the 1 million. So for example, your 1 million is still there, just that there's no dividend yet. Then you pay zakat on it if it's up to Nisab. In this case, it's not. In this case, it's not up to Nisab. If it's a Nigerian company, for example, Nisab is currently 2.5, right? So, I mean, you don't yet qualify for Nisab. But assuming you invested 2.5 M, right? And the value of your investment is still 2.5 M. Remember, we spoke about financial assets, right? So if the value is still 2.5 M, then you pay Nisab, you pay zakat on it, whether or not you have not received anything. The fact is that at least you're even lucky it didn't become 2 million. So it's still, do you understand? So
yeah, and another question is, how do you know what you owe in arrears?
You have to calculate. You calculate. In fact, get a spreadsheet out, determine. You pick like a cut-off date. So what was the value of my investments in 2020 something? Calculate zakat on it. What was the value of my investments the next year, the next year, the next year, and calculate zakat on it. You'll be very surprised that it won't be that much because it's actually quite a lenient sum. It's just 2.5% of your entire. The people that will have trouble is the pension. So pension. If you haven't been paying on your pension, right, and it's been accumulating, I think that's where there will be a big deal. But if it's just normal income, it won't be that bad.
Okay, so there's a Moshood Basha who has raised the hand. Are you okay to unmute yourself and ask your question directly, please?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have 3 questions. I'll try to be quick with them. The first one is actually in relation to a question you had answered, and you stated that if an individual is unemployed or has lost their job, they don't pay zakat unless there's plentiful. But my understanding is, isn't it all just based on the nisab, what the nisab is? If they've lost their job but they still have the 2.5 or they have 3 million, then are they still supposed to pay nisab even though they don't have a job? And then they can obviously afford to eat and what have you. I don't know if I should ask the next 2 questions or just wait for you to answer that.
Yeah, of course they'll pay. They'll pay. The question was, oh, you've lost your job, you don't have much. Do you understand?
Okay.
If the question was, I lost my job, but I still have nisab, then you should pay because you should be grateful for it, right? And so you still pay, zakat on it.
Okay. The second question is, if, for example, you're giving zakat to an individual, obviously the person you assume this individual doesn't have much, but you have no idea whether or not they have the nisab or not. And some people might, you have no idea, depending on where you live, but you don't know what they have or don't have. Can you just go ahead and give them because you're assuming they don't have much, or do you have to find out? I'm just curious because some people may not be eligible for zakat, but you're giving them the money?
It would be nice to find out, to be honest. It would be good to find out so you make sure that it's getting to the right. And that's where, distribution of zakat. In fact, the kind of society we actually live in, right? In other more structured environments, they're actually zakat collectors, right? Zakat collectors, where they are the ones that do the distribution. They know who, needs the zakat. Unfortunately, our ummah is not really structured that way, but there are zakat companies, there are zakat funds, there are many associations, even Tahara collects zakat. There are many associations that actually collect zakat so that they don't make the mistake of giving the wrong people zakat. However, there's some people that obviously need zakat. Like I said, there's the needy, there's the massacre. There's some people that they don't have to feel that they're poor, but it's difficult feeding. It's difficult paying their children's school fees. It's difficult meeting their medical bills, right? You don't have to ask if they help me. You can tell already based on things you're seeing, but you can actually confirm that, oh, how are things, just try and get the real situation first so that you don't give the wrong person that doesn't need it, and so.
Of course, thank you. And the final one, so I don't take much of your time, it's about pension. So for example, I'll give myself an example. I'm not going to know exactly what my pension is until I retire, and that's probably going to be in another, I don't know, 30 years. But I'm not going to know because I have no access to it. How do you pay on that? Do you just wait till you retire? Because I have zero access to knowing what it's going to be eventually, just because the way it's set up.
I don't know, where do you reside?
So I live in the UK, and the way the pension scheme is you sort of don't know, and it's an NHS pension, so it just contributes run in a different way, I guess.
Okay, so in Nigeria, right, we get a statement, so there's no running from that one. You get statements that show you, what your pension is, so you can actually find out. For yours, I'm really not sure about that. You need to seek clarification on how do you estimate, or what you can do is try and estimate what is deducted. You get, maybe that can help. If you can estimate what is deducted in the first place, that can help you in trying to estimate what it is. Because you might have a very large bill, at the end of your retirement, and that may eat into your retirement enjoyment. So, and then if you're not even sure, you can just say, you know what, let me just pay this just to be sure, and just to make sure that, and you calculate it, you keep your records just to ensure that by the time the bill comes in, oh, I've settled this already, this is what's left, let me just settle that. You can estimate, but I'll advise you estimate while you can, so.
Okay, thank you, Jazakallah.
Okay.
We also have, if you have investments abroad and in Nigeria, so in multiple currencies, how do you streamline?
Streamline, just convert. Convert, you can choose one currency, convert to that currency, and get the nisab. So, or if you like, nisab in Nigeria is this 2.5. You can use your Nigeria, your investments in Nigeria. Your investments in London are this, you can use that. Or you can just make everything one currency, the easiest for you to convert, and then use that instead.
Okay, and then for pensions, is it the entire amount each year or on the growth difference, and what percentages do?
It's the entire amount. It's the entire amount.
Then there is also, for those of us that work and we pay the monthly pension contribution, but we don't have access to such funds yet, do we pay zakat on it if the value is up to the nisab?
Yes, you do. So in that, I think I answered that previously because we don't have access to it, right? So getting the cash to actually pay it might be a problem. You're allowed to pay some of it and not all of it, and defer the rest to when you actually receive it. Yeah, so you can actually do that. So you pay some of it and then the rest of it when you receive it. But just try and pay as much as you are able, right? And then you leave the rest. So you know what, when I get it, I'll pay it.
Another comment on the pension, but I think you've covered that. What is this? what is the steer regarding investments like stocks that are currently in losses but are of significant value and can yield gains down the line? Like, if you have stocks, regardless of how the portfolio is doing, how do you assess that when it comes to paying zakat?
Okay, like we said earlier, you pick a month where a lunar month preferably, where your zakat will be due, right? So it keeps you organized. So let's say it's Ramadan, for example. So what you do is you calculate the value of your shares in Ramadan, right? If it's up to Nisab, then you pay on it. So financial assets is not based on profits; it's the entire value that you pay. It's not based on the profit. It's the entire asset that you pay on. So it's not like your house where you pay on rent. A flat that you own, pay on rent. It's not like that. For your financial assets, the entire value. For your gold, the entire value of the gold. For the silver, the entire value of the silver. If it's a debt, it's the entire value of the debt. If it's a loan. So.
Also, so for jewelry, gold, do you have to have owned it for a year before you pay zakat on it?
No. Jewelry isn't really like that. But I mean, it's how to explain it? You can just keep it with your timeline for paying zakat. So at that point, you can value your jewelry, add it to it, and pay. So it's not like every month or anything like that. So that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Those are the last of the questions. If anything pops up, I'll request. But thank you. But I guess maybe one more thing for me while I have you here is it's related to the points you mentioned earlier, is that we don't really learn about like zakat, like there's not enough emphasis on zakat. But I'll take it a little bit further in that, just generally, like Islamic finance in general. I've tried to read up on it and study, but I just have zero visibility on a lot of you read up on certain things and you know some of the basics, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we can increase our knowledge of like zakat and like just Islamic finance in general, just the way we structure. I mean, a lot of us are entrepreneurs, you're working with companies, you're doing deals, so sometimes having that guidance to structure you can be really helpful, but it's just difficult to know what to do. So I'm just interested to know, for someone who has, who is CEO of a business that is halal, and deals with investments and everything. So I don't know what your thoughts are on how we can like brush up on that knowledge.
Okay. Well, your business is also due for zakat, right?
Yes.
Exactly. All right. So I think, sessions like this are great, so that's one. But I can assure you there's a lot of information online as well. There's so many videos on YouTube, short videos you can watch that explain all these things. There's so many texts online that you can read, to explain. And then you can have more forums like this. You can have a campaign, you can have a campaign around zakat. And you know what? Have you paid your zakat? I noticed that the campaigns come only during Ramadan, to be honest, even for us. So I guess we just need to do more. It shouldn't be only Ramadan like saying, have you paid your zakat? It could be every quarter, talking more about it and doing more sessions about it. And even going to universities that, you're about to start working, or it's time to start thinking about. So of course you don't qualify for zakat now, but very soon you start working. It's important don't make the mistakes that many of us made, just not even thinking about zakat because you're not even aware. You're like, I've prayed now, I've fasted now, that's all. Forgetting that there's a third pillar coming, so it's important that we start early. I think that's one of the most, start early, so a lot of partnerships can happen. Oh, by the way, there are many zakat and sadaqah foundations, there's so many of them. And then, like I said, a lot of associations also have this. So maybe partnerships with them as well, going around, just campaigning really on the importance of zakat. A lot of times, the focus is on eshedada, do well, do good, do this, do that, which is good, but hardly ever earn halal income and pay your zakat. That's really, at the bottom, and it should be together. So as you're teaching people to be well behaved, you're teaching people to pray, teaching people to fast, Because one of the things we're going to be asked about is our wealth. How did you earn it? What did you use it for? You know, so it's very, very important that from the start, we start talking about it. The same we will talk about going to madrasa and everything. So, I mean, I think it's important. So that's what I would say to that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ma. Alhamdulillah. I think we are finally at the end of the session. We've got some really lovely comments. Just as a final reminder, again, the Tahara Collective can and is able to collect Zakat payments, and we have a lot of projects that and a lot of this money goes to individuals. So please feel free to reach out to Tahara Collective or to pay your Zakat to the Tahara Collective. There are a lot of links in the chat. And I think Latifa can probably post them again, or join our mailing lists, follow us on social media, and you get access to all our resources. This session is recorded and will be posted on YouTube, and we have a lot of our other sessions that are on YouTube as well. So please feel free to remind yourself, share with your community, spread the good news. So thank you again, everyone, so much for your attendance. We're really grateful. I don't know if you can do just a final, not to put you on the spot, so you can do just a final closing dua for us. We can end anything simple. Thank you very much, and then we can end the session.
Okay, which one then? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Well, Allah has not created all this without purpose. Glory be to you. Exalted be you. Above all, we associate with you as partners. Grant us salvation from the torment of fire. Verily, those you have called to the deen have accepted. So grant us among those that have accepted faith. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Thank you very much, Ami.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay.